Okay, so introduction to U13, U15, and U19. Again, U13, U15, U19 families, thank you so much for being here tonight. Coaches, players, parents, love to have you guys be a part of this community, and thank you for being here. We're going to start with a land and sport acknowledgement. This is something that is standard practice before all of our U15, U19, and Jewel games. And a lot of our less experienced officials will also do it before our U9, U11, and U13 games. But something that our players will start to hear before each game. And it's important to me that we start with this tonight as well. So at this time, we would like to give thanks to the creator for giving us the game of lacrosse. Lacrosse is medicine to the host.
I'm just in a webinar for the U19 rules.
Yes, you are. Thanks, Renee.
For school, not for Pimlico. Well, for both, I guess.
Hey, April, I'm just going to mute you. Okay, so at this time, we would like to give thanks to the creator for giving us the game of lacrosse. Lacrosse is medicine to the Haudenosaunee, the people of the Longhouse, and we want to thank them for sharing this medicine with the world. We would also like to give thanks to all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples as we all sit in their territories. We say thank you to the creator for giving us Mother Earth. She then gave us the tree that our sticks are made from. These are the true roots of the medicine we call lacrosse today. Thank you. We're going to do an incredibly short history of the sport, but it is always important to acknowledge the Indigenous history and culture that continues to shape the game of lacrosse. And that's why we start with our latent sport acknowledgement. My name is Hannah Burdett. I'm going to be your presenter tonight. I am the current OWFL Director of Officiating. You've probably seen me around the fields if you're a returning family. And if not, please feel free to stop me and interrupt me and say hello. When I see you around the fields this summer, I will be around. I am a current level 4 internationally certified official, so an international official, and I'm a level 1 international. I am going to speak tonight through an officiating lens because we're talking about the rules, but despite my kind of like emphasis on officiating and my real like passion in trying to help improve our officials across Ontario and across Canada. I also have a background in playing and coaching, so we'll try and draw on that to make things a little bit more beneficial to the families that are in here tonight. So I started playing when I was in high school. My field hockey coach wrote me into playing, and I played at Sinclair Secondary. So I had a pretty great career at Sinclair. I'm a goalie. I started playing U17 Blue Knights and made Team Ontario when I was in my U17 season heading into grade 12. And then after high school, I went to Laurier. I played at Wilfrid Laurier University for 5 years. We had 2 championship runs then. And I was lucky enough to get inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2019. So as a player, as a goalie in particular, I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about the game of lacrosse that I will share with you this evening. And then I started officiating in 2009. So I've been around the game for a while. I'm about to do my 4th World Cup this summer, my 4th World Championship this summer in Hong Kong. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then in terms of coaching, I've coached for a number of years with Team Ontario, with private schools, back at Laurier a few years ago. And I'm just going to try and draw on all of that experience tonight to introduce this wonderful game to you all. But again, any questions, please feel free to interrupt me as we go. My goals tonight. So I really want to contextualize the game of women's field lacrosse and our sport's unique history for everybody. I also want to provide a brief overview of the OWFL and our programs. I want to introduce U13, U15, U19, including the modifications specific to these levels, and kind of as we get into these levels, there are fewer modifications compared to what's written in our rule book. So we'll go over that a little bit. I really want to build avenues for spectators and coaches to inform themselves and contribute to a positive environment for our athletes and our officials on the field. And my number one thing is I really just want to foster an appreciation for this phenomenal game. And hopefully some of that will wear off on you tonight and you're really looking forward to going into the season this year. An all too compact history of our game begins and ends with Indigenous communities. So Indigenous culture and community form the foundations of the game of lacrosse in all of its forms: box, field, women's field, men's field, women's field, and sixes, as well as other variations that are played everywhere. In the 2000s, the women's field game was arguably maybe the closest still to the creators game, played with no boundaries until around 2004, 2005. So if a ball went out of bounds, people would literally just chase it into the stands. It was an insane way to learn how to play the game of lacrosse. And players still to this day wear limited equipment. Women's field as a discipline appeared in Scotland in the 1800s in like girls' private schools, and it was popularized in Canada around the 1980s. That's the first time that that Team Canada had a national program. And then Team Haudenosaunee came in, I believe it was around 2007 for the Peterborough World Cup. OWFL athletes do have the opportunity to compete on the international stage for Team Canada or Team Haudenosaunee. And lacrosse, sixes lacrosse is Olympic bound for 2028. So the version of lacrosse that we're going to be talking about tonight is not necessarily going to be what you see in the Olympics, but our athletes are going to potentially be in the Olympics. So a really exciting time for lacrosse in Canada and lacrosse in Ontario as our athletes get going here. I've had nobody turn their cameras on through these sessions, so it's lovely to see some faces. Again, way too compact a history, but I hope to not take too much of your time tonight. Women's lacrosse, so you might see it shortened to WLAX. It is our own thing. It is a unique sport. Those of us that have been around it for a while, that are kind of entrenched and as coaches, as players, as officials, some of us have some very strong opinions about this, and some of us come from other sectors, like might have come from Box First. But generally, those of us that are, women's field is our thing, we don't want to wear more equipment and we don't want to play with box sticks, or we enjoy playing with both. What's going to make our game different is particularly our sticks. They have shallower pockets. I find that our game is fast-paced and incredibly highly skilled. And while the play is akin to basketball, officiating in this game and penalties in this game are like basketball and soccer combined. And while there's room for change, I would like to say that most people that are involved in the sport, we really do like it this way, or we like where the sport is heading anyways. In terms of the OWFL, if you're new to the OWFL, our mandate is to provide opportunities for girls and women of all ages to participate in women's field lacrosse in the province of Ontario. We are currently responsible for running all of the rep women's field lacrosse programming, where clubs will compete against each other in weekend tournament setups. Hopefully there's some midweek games this year, but generally speaking, we compete on weekends, and all of that culminates in a provincial championship at the end of the year. We offer U9 through U19 programs, so that includes our U19 Jewel Elite program. And we are also responsible for organizing the women's lacrosse component of Ontario Summer Games. So this is the Summer Games year. I'm sure there's some families on this call tonight or that are going to watch the recording afterwards that have young athletes aspiring to be part of Ontario Summer Games this year. So that's U17, and that's going to be held in London. And I believe tryout information has been posted. And if not, please stay tuned to the OWFL social media pages. And then hopefully it will be circulated to your clubs as well if you're interested in trying out for Ontario Summer Games. It's an incredible, incredible opportunity to get coached by some different coaches, to meet players from different organizations. So that's definitely something that we as an organization are looking forward to that first weekend of August. Our role as officials, again, I don't really want to just talk about officials tonight. I'm sure you guys think that officials talk about ourselves enough, and I tend to agree. But I do think it's important to contextualize what our role as officials is like in women's lacrosse specifically. So fouls in our game occur frequently on ball and off ball. Some fouls result in quick stoppages of play where the player who is fouled may restart of their own volition, while others require officials to step up and move in and set up the specific foul based on the foul, where it occurred, who did it, etc. Really dangerous and unsportsmanlike play may also result in stoppages of time and cards being awarded to offending players, like in soccer. And kind of like in hockey, when we have one of those more like egregious fouls, somebody's going to go off the field and serve that penalty off the field. Officials play an important role in managing play to keep players safe, to keep the game fair, and it's, in my opinion, the most important thing to allow players to play to their greatest potential. That is our ultimate goal as an organization of officials. And who are our officials? Usually we have between 70 and 100 to cover all of our teams throughout the summer. So if you're interested in registering, registration is still open. Highly encourage you to register for a new officials clinic. They start next week. 40% of OWFL officials are under the age of 18. So many of them are still playing U15, U19, and Jewel. Some of them might even be on the call tonight. If so, hello, I salute you. But it's important to me to highlight how young a group we have. It's a talented group. It's a group that's very committed. It's also a group that 30 of them this summer, or 24 of them this summer, I think it's 24. 24 of them this summer are going to be brand new and have never done this before. And every year that tends to be the case for us. We have a very young, very predominantly female group of officials, which is exciting for us. But it means that everyone has to deal with the fact that they have 16-year-old officials. So please, your patience, but also your understanding and your respect for those that are putting themselves out there. 25% or so of our officials are in college. So many of them bring a really great lacrosse IQ. And again, most of our officials are players. So it's not just like they're doing this for one reason and one reason only. Less than 30% of our officials are over 23. I've been doing this a while and I barely consider myself an adult. So we are a particularly young group. And last year, only 2 of our 80 officials were men. So very proud to be a predominantly female group in a women's sport, but also understand that that has its own complications to it as well. And heading into this year, we have some people coming from other disciplines to try our game as officials. So excited to see what's happening this year. Last thing I'll say about officiating for the night, we do have a mentorship program. So if you see somebody sitting at the table, like at the scorekeeper's table, and then they're meeting with the officials at halftime or after the game, that's a mentor, that's an evaluator. So the mentors are experienced officials. They're level 2, 3, and 4 officials who are tasked with providing feedback to on-field officials and liaising with coaches. We're there to help serve, to create positive environments and let new and returning officials develop and grow. If you're a U13 coach on the call tonight and you have a question during a game and you have a mentor on your game, please direct that question to the mentor as soon as it comes to you. That's what they are there to do. They're there to take notes to help these officials, but also to liaise between the officials and you. While they're learning how to manage coaches, this more experienced officials there to help manage that relationship. And then the U15, U19s on this call, you won't have a mentor that you can talk to. So at appropriate times, you do speak to the officials if you're a coach or a captain, but there's probably somebody watching off the field. So we take the mentorship program very seriously and are open to feedback. I'm going to show you a document tonight that kind of goes through that reporting process if you're at all interested. But let's get into it. What I'm about to explain is the game of women's field lacrosse, and this game is it's fast. It's highly skilled, it's beautiful, and it is one of the most infuriating products I've ever been a part of in my entire life. Trying to explain it can often be a very laborious process. And what I do want to do through this explanation tonight is try and simplify or provide some context for where the game is coming from so you can see where it's going, because I do think it's kind of exciting. It is going to be a web of intricacies that are like, why do we do this to ourselves? And we'll see why. At the very top level, our rule book is dictated by World Lacrosse. So World Lacrosse is the governing body for all the sectors of lacrosse: men's field, women's field, box, and sixes that are played internationally. And they are the ones that write our rule book. I am a member of that rules committee as of about 8 months ago. So it is a very bureaucratic, it takes lots of steps to get through that type of stuff, but that's who's at the top level of our game. Beneath that is Lacrosse Canada. Lacrosse Canada makes their own rule modifications, makes their own decisions in terms of rules, and that's to serve all of the provinces. Then we have the Ontario Lacrosse Association, and they can make changes and decisions about rules. Then it's us. Then it's the OWFL. And we're dependent on kind of information feeding down from all of those different levels before it gets to us. And then we also are going to make our own development-oriented rule modifications for our divisions, generally up until U13, but over the last couple of years, it's become U11. As you're going to see tonight, U13 and up is playing real lacrosse, which is really exciting. We have very talented athletes at these divisions, so we want them to play the game. But at these divisions in particular, U13 and above, you also might have experienced going down to play in the US, either with your OWFL team for a weekend tournament or with a travel program. And all of those things are cool, but the game can be even more frustrating because you never get consistency. There's no consistency in officiating, there's no consistency in rules. And in the US, it's because they operate under a totally different system. USA writes 3 different rule books for 3 different sectors, one for US high school, one for the NCAA, one for youth. So if those are 3 separate rule books, and then their professional division, the Athletes Unlimited program, which is really cool. If you've never checked it out, there's some amazing lacrosse players playing in that game. They technically have 4 different variations of field lining, specific rules, age-specific rules. So that is the context in which Canadian players are trying to get into this game. This is the game you can play in college. This is the game that can really kind of take you to that next level. You can travel with it. It's amazing the opportunities that are coming out of this, but there's a lot of variations going on in our sport. Never mind what's being played in Australia, Japan, New Zealand. It's all different. And so why? Why do we do this to ourselves? Why are there so many types? But why? This is the question we get asked a lot. And my answer to that question is that this sport is growing. The sport is still finding its own identity and growing massively on the world stage. I think that we're now pretty close to what the final version of our game might be. And in my head, that looks like us becoming soccer and then being entrenched in those rules and making fewer changes as we go forward. But we're still going through some growing pains, which I readily admit. We understand that these can be kind of alienating for families at times, but we do ask you to bear with us. This is a really phenomenal time to be involved in lacrosse in Ontario. And as we see other variations do exist for development purposes, we're trying to introduce athletes at age-appropriate ways to the game so that they'll stay with it for longer. And despite it being Indigenous in its origin, women's lacrosse specifically has this kind of weird Britishness to it in the way that the rules are written. They're very kind of prim and proper in a way that doesn't always suit the game and the way the game's developed. I don't think our game is that prim and proper way it was when I started playing in high school. And at the world lacrosse level, where we are making strides to change the rules, consolidate them amongst box field sixes so that it's less confusing if you're coming from different sectors. And we want to make the game more spectator friendly. But all of while we have to bear in player safety. So that's kind of where we're coming from. But this is how I want us to feel. This is at the end of tonight's presentation, how I'm hoping we're feeling. I'm hoping we're psyched. I'm hoping we're looking forward to the OWFL season, and I'm hoping that we're feeling more comfortable understanding the rules of our game and understanding our game in its context. So I've got you tonight for the next 40 minutes at least, and then this will be this is being recorded. So if you have to jump out at any point tonight, just feel free to go. And I will send the Zoom out later this week. I'm going to wait after the Jewel call. I'm going to upload them both to YouTube, and then I will share them with you. So just in case you have to duck out after 30 or after 60 minutes tonight, my sincere thanks for being here. This is what our field looks like. So I understand there's going to be some families that are coming from U11 into U13, and that's why you're here tonight. This is the field that we use. It actually even looks different than the field that U13, U15, and U19 players used last year, and that's because it is different. This is the field that Jewel used last year. This is the field that Lacrosse Canada and World Lacrosse use. This is taken right from our rule book, but you'll notice that this says 15. And so tonight we're going to talk about this one and only change that's happening to the season this year, to the rules this year. And that's going to be this area becoming 15 meters for our athletes. But this is the field we're going to use. This is a real lacrosse field for women's field. I think it's important to provide some language, some common language, because I often find that people don't actually know what to call things on the field. I'll say to a player, go to the center hash, and they look at me like I have 2 heads, and that's fine. We don't do a good enough job explaining what our field is called. So we'll go through that quickly tonight. Number 1 is the shared sub box. So that's up here at the top of our screen. As of last season, we do have a shared substitution area like in men's field, like in sixes. And a player can substitute onto the field once their sub comes completely off the field. So 2 feet off, then somebody can go on. And you don't have to stick tap. Somebody can come in the far left side and exit the far right side. So that's the purpose of that shared sub box. Both teams can substitute on the fly at any time in that shared space. So that is the substitution area. We also have boundaries. So unlike when I started playing in 2004, we now have 4 firm lines on the field that dictate the surroundings of the field. If you step on a boundary, you're out of bounds. If you're standing inside the line, but your stick is dangling out, that is technically still legal. But as soon as that ball falls from your stick or drops to the ground, that's going to be out of bounds as well. We have sidelines and end lines there. For U11 families coming up to U13, a change for you this season. We have 2 restraining lines on a full field. The purpose of the restraining line is to mark onside and offside players. So that's why there are 2 of them. We have a neutral zone. That's our midfield section between the 2 restraining lines. But this line and this line run edge to edge, and these are our 2 restraining lines. It's important to note that we don't have a center line on our field, so that line really doesn't mean anything in women's field lacrosse. At this level, it meant a lot in U11 and U9, but these are our restraining lines here. So you have to keep a certain number of players below the line and a certain number of players above the line to be onside. We'll talk about that. We have a center circle. So this is also the first OWFL level where we're going to really have a draw that matters. We're going to draw after every single goal, and we're going to set 3 players up within the space between the 2 restraining lines every draw. One person will take the draw from each team, and 2 of their teammates can stand anywhere around that center circle. When the whistle goes, they're allowed to enter that center circle and go for the ball. So it's 3v3 in the midfield until we have possession. So that's our center circle. And then we also have a marking area. This area gets called the fan. It is in shape like a fan, which is true. So that is this semicircular space in both ends of the field. This is the marking area. The marking area at all of these divisions, U13, U15, U19, is going to be 15 meters. That means from the center line up to the center hash, that's 15 meters. It is 4 meters bigger than it would have been for any of these athletes last year. And I'll explain why we're doing that. Before we do that, the purpose of this space is to designate foul setups. So we never want someone to restart a meter from the goal. If any foul happens in this space, we're always going to bump it back to the line before we restart the play, so that we have like a designated area from which to do that. But yes, we'll never restart play within 15 meters of goal. The hashes are center hash, pretty straightforward. It's the one in the center. The other 2, this one and this one, those are first hash. And then we just number them up from there. So it's center, first, second, third, and it's center, first, second, and third. Those are all 4 meters away from each other. So 4 meters, if you're familiar with our game at all, is an important field marker for all of our penalty administration. So we'll come back to 4 meters. But if somebody's getting the ball at the center hash, then odds are somebody's going to go 4 meters behind them. And then the defense is always going to be entitled to the space on 4 meters on either side to the adjacent hash marks. The third hash, we're never going to start the ball there. It's only ever going to be for foul setups when somebody's on the second hash. So it's literally just to keep people nice and even so we know where 4 meters is so we can restart play that much more quickly. That's what the hash marks are for. If a foul was to occur within 15 meters but below the goal line, that's what the dots are for. So we can never restart play within 15. So if a foul occurs below the goal line, it's going to get restarted at the dot every time. That's what the dots are there for. If the ball were to go out of bounds between the dots, it's going to be brought back in. It's going to go to the closest dot, and then that player is going to be allowed to start play from there. So that's the service of the dots. We do have a goal circle, and then cutting the goal circle in half is our goal line extended. So the marking area is defined by the goal line extended and the marking area line. The space below the goal circle is defined by the goal line extended down to the end line. So those are our field lines. Hopefully the shared language helps a little bit tonight. The other space that I want to define for you is the advantage flag area. This gets shortened to AFA quite a lot, and this is a space that is important to understand for our rules, but isn't something that I think most teams understand. The advantage flag area is important for two reasons. Um, for our younger divisions, it has a particular connotation, but for this level of play, this is the area in which officials can pull their flags. So a flag is the equivalent of a hockey official seeing a penalty and putting their hand up in the air. It's a delayed penalty. We've seen it. We're going to penalize it, or we're going to wait and see what happens, and then we're going to penalize it. New officials are expected to wear their flags, so they're the yellow flags that they'll wear around their waistbands. But we don't teach how to use a flag until your second year. So it's something that we're trying to get a little bit better at introducing sooner, but there's just so much to learn. This is the equivalent of like a play on in men's, but when a major foul, like a big dangerous foul happens on a scoring drive within this area, within the marking area, within the goal circle, or within the area below the goal line extended, this is where we can pull our flags. And the purpose being that we want to see how the scoring play ends. We actually don't want to blow our whistles more. We want to blow our whistles less. Safety remains our primary concern over the flow of the game, but the advantage flag, the flag, allows us to have some flow in the game. So if someone gets pushed and there's illegal contact, but they keep going, then we flag it and we'll see what happens from there. But for now, what I'd like this group to understand is that we have an advantage flag area, and it's made up of these three distinct zones together: the marking area, the goal circle, and the advantage flag area below the goal line extended. It needs a name. It doesn't have a name, but those three areas. Transitioning from U11 to U13, you're going to a full-size field. So your field used to be 70 meters long at U11. Now it is 100 meters long. You are also being introduced to stick checking at U13. And now we're going up to this big 15-meter marking area. Last year, this was adopted by our Jewel League. This is the official World Lacrosse rules. And there was for sure an adjustment period while people got used to playing 15 meters out instead of 11 meters out. But ultimately, we had really positive feedback about the change. And that's one of the reasons why all of the other divisions are going this way this year. This is the only significant change to the rules this season for any of these divisions and any of our divisions, period. So some things that all of you athletes, U13, U15, U19, can expect with this bigger marking area is that there's going to be more 1v1 defense. It's more space for the defense to cover. So we're probably going to have more scoring opportunities. So that means harder to crash to the ball. Crashing meaning that when someone drives, all the defense forget the players that they are defending and they move towards the ball carrier. It is difficult to crash effectively and to play effective crash defense when someone drives from 15 meters away because you're that much further away. So defense have to adjust. They've got to have heads on swivels. They need to be fast. They need to communicate. I'm sure any of the coaches on the call tonight will understand how I feel when I say trying to get any athlete to communicate is like really challenging at times, but it's such an important part of our game. You're also going to see probably, particularly at the beginning of the season, more instances of a foul called 3 seconds. So we're going to get into this in more detail towards the end of the call tonight. But basically, if you think of the marking area like the key in basketball, you can only be inside that zone, that area, if you are actively guarding somebody. You have to be within a stick length, playing defense on somebody to be in that space. And so because the space is that much bigger, what we found last year was the first few weekends of the season, a lot more of little Susie being kind of in no man's land, just kind of watching play happen around them, but they're actually sitting in 3 seconds. We'll discuss that more later tonight. And then what you're going to see if there is a foul is hopefully fewer shots from the marking area line. So if I got pushed, there's a whistle. I'm going to get set up on the closest hash mark. And then on the whistle to restart play, you used to have really bad shots being taken from 11 meters out. Particularly U13, U15, a lot of athletes at that age don't have enough power to be able to score from that far out. So you are going to see hopefully more people driving in on free positions because the 15-meter marking area is that much larger. And again, just anybody with questions tonight, please feel free to chat them up or unmute yourself and interrupt. But as we can see, this game, very similar to World Lacrosse. So when the things that matter, this is getting more and more and more like real women's lacrosse, like the rule book says it should be, like the World Championships this summer will look like when Team Haudenosaunee and Team Canada are playing in Hong Kong. We're going to play with a hard yellow ball. We have 4 10-minute quarters for U13 and 12.5-minute quarters for U15 and U19. So 10-minute for U13, 12.5 minutes for U15 and U19. And that's just because Saturdays have longer game slots and Sundays when U13s play have shorter game slots. But the rest of it's pretty much the same. We're going to use draws to start each quarter. We're going to have draws after every goal. We're going to play 10 players on the field at once. This is women's field is often called women's 10s or lacrosse 10s. It's 6 attackers versus 7 defenders. Typically, the 7th defender is the goalie, but it doesn't have to be at these levels. And we're going to hold 3 players behind the restraining line. That's what's going to keep us onside. Attack and defense, just like in real lacrosse, is going to be similar to basketball. You can play zone or you can play person-to-person's defense. We also have backer defenses. There's lots of different things that you can do. I will say that with a 15-meter marking area, backers and zones are much more challenging to apply because you don't have that safety zone. Our old marking area used to be a different shape and it was a little bit more forgiving. With a full semicircle, you have a lot of space to clear out from the middle to the edges of that marking area. So something to be aware of, particularly for coaches heading into this season. Player equipment. I had a lot of questions going into tonight about what equipment is expected. Just quickly, you need to have a stick that's legal for women's field lacrosse, so specifically legal for the women's game. I'll get back into this in a second. You need a mouth guard that covers the upper level, all teeth, including your back molars. It's not supposed to be white or clear or have pictures of teeth on it. So a color, a solid color, or a couple of colors is preferable. The reason is that we unfortunately have issues when people wear their retainers instead of mouth guards and then get injured. So trying to avoid that, this is a safety concern. So please wear a real mouth guard. Goggles are now mandated by the OLA. I am going to send out the slide deck afterwards, and you're welcome to click through the links. So anything in orange is a link. This is a link to the OLA's guidance on why we are introducing and why they're mandating goggles. The rule is here. What I do want to point out is that this is what a goggle looks like. They need to be SCI certified. Most of the major retailers, STX, Cascade, Brine, their goggles are all going to be SCI certified if you're buying them at a local retailer across Ontario. Dick's Sporting Goods, like all of those places, they're all going to have SCI certified goggles intended for women's field lacrosse. The picture at the bottom is a women's field lacrosse helmet. This is not legal. So more equipment, again, not necessarily everyone's opinion on what is best for our game. And this is by the current World Lacrosse rulebook, not a legal piece of equipment for women's field lacrosse. They are only legal in the United States. And you do not see very many players wearing them. So SCI certified goggles, yes, mandatory this season. Helmets, not going to work. Please do not bring them to the field. They're expensive. They don't last long. They don't hold up well. And you're not going to be allowed to wear them. Your athletes can wear running shoes, turf shoes, cleats, but no metal bottoms. So baseball ones aren't great, depending on their players' playing surface and whatever their preference is. And some players will wear close fitting gloves, like if it's raining or if it's cold. It tends to go out of vogue and it's not a super popular thing to do these days, but hey, everyone just needs to be comfortable when they play our game. So that's some player equipment. To take a bigger look at the sticks, I mentioned that the stick has to be legal for women's field lacrosse. So you cannot use a box stick. You cannot use a men's field lacrosse stick for women's. The pockets are different. The sticks are designed in a different way because our stick checking and the way we play physically is different. We want to be able to check the ball out of the stick with a decent check. So you can't have a big bag or a big pocket on your stick. Pocket depth is shallow compared to those other sticks, so that's the key designator. And at U13 and above, please do not cut your child's stick. Technically, by these age divisions, you're supposed to have a fully legal stick, which is 90 to 110 centimeters end to end. And you're cutting your kid off at the knees if you're shortening your stick. In my opinion, I see a lot of players that cut their sticks get overthrown because their teammates just would pass to where their stick would naturally be. So please don't cut sticks. And then in terms of the pocket, this is what officials are going to be most concerned about, is the depth of the pocket. So for our pockets to be legal, we need to see the top of the ball over this angle of the sidewall. So from one end to the other, I should be able to see the top of the ball just like it is here. As soon as the ball is no longer visible beneath the pocket depth, that is when it's going to be an illegal pocket and you have to pull the strings to tighten it. There is a stick list. It's on the World Lacrosse website. So this is the playing rules. So it's the game, World Lacrosse's website, the game, rules, playing, take you here. And then down where it says stick list, legal stick list, this is the women's field list. So all Adidas, all Brine, all of the big vendors, all of their sticks are listed here if they are legal. So if you have a question, find out what the stick is called and you can check against this list. But again, generally speaking, most things are going to be on there. And if you're buying from one of the major retailers, those are Gate, STX, Brian's Drinking, that are available at ILA, Lac Shack, Toronto Rock Shop, Hogtown. I know I'm missing some. Hometown in Guelph. There's lots of great stores around Ontario to buy sticks from. They're selling legal sticks. I haven't seen an illegal stick at one of those stores in a really long time. And again, there aren't many illegal sticks anymore. So that's a little bit about sticks. And again, just to see that difference. So these are two players that were actually at sixes at World Games, but the women's stick is very shallow compared to the deep, very deep pocket of that men's stick. How deep and how big the pocket itself can be. For ours, you have to see the ball over. For the men's, it doesn't really matter to me how you check a men's stick. So I think you have to be able to see it. I'm not gonna speak out of turn. I don't know anything about men's sticks. Goalkeeping equipment. Mouth guards, mandatory. Helmets with a dangling throat protector, mandatory. Chest protector is mandatory. And gloves are technically optional, but we are at yellow hard rubber ball phase of lacrosse now. So we want to make sure that goalies are safe. As somebody with permanent bruises on my body resulting from plays 12 years ago, please wear gloves. And we want to just make sure that goalies are comfortable as they're going to start to see harder and faster shots with that hard yellow rubber ball. So we do want to feel protected and confident in the goal. There's nothing worse than a goalie feeling like they're unsafe. So they're allowed to wear more equipment than what is listed here. To protect themselves, they can pad arms, they can pad legs, they can pad more than just their chest and their heads with a helmet. But there's a 3 centimeter rule that's going to apply. So any equipment that protects any part of the arm beyond your head needs to be within 3 centimeters of your body. And officials are supposed to, and older officials and more experienced officials will carry around a measuring tape to measure. Doesn't come up very often, but because we have maybe new goalies at this level, you can see this is technically all lacrosse specific equipment intended for women's field. But if I measure any of these, they're not going to go more than 3 centimeters off the goalie's body. And that's to just keep things fair. So you can wear hockey shin pads, baseball catcher shin pads, hockey shoulder pads, but they have to be within 3 centimeters. So what's definitely not going to be legal are going to be things that are oversized and specifically intended for box lacrosse, or that are big and broad. If you see, this is former Team Canada goalie Cass. She plays at Oregon. I think she's still at Oregon. But how little equipment she's wearing. She's a national level player, an NCAA player. You don't have to wear as little equipment as she is wearing, but you cannot wear box equipment. So we need to find that 3 centimeter balance between. Rules, game, we've gotten past equipment. So let's get into the actual rules. I do want to direct you to the OWFL website. It's owfl.org/officials. This is where I house all of the development resources that I've been trying to create over the last couple of years. I didn't mention this up top, but my motto heading into this role with the OWFL is that no rule is a secret. We should not be as obtuse about our own game, but I believe that that is nobody's fault. Until last year, none of these resources existed. So I do not blame anybody unless you attended an officiating clinic and then didn't know the rules. That one's on you. But otherwise, I do blame us. We needed to be better for a long time about creating things in writing that people could refer back to, that they could educate themselves using. And so that's what I've been trying to do for the last year. So if we visit owfl.org/officials, it's the OWFL women's lacrosse, field lacrosse page. So officials is just up here. This is that website. If you go down to rules and modifications, this is going to be the high level resources that hopefully will help you this season, whether you're a player, a coach, a parent, or just interested in learning more about the game. A couple of documents I want to highlight for you. There is a rule modification summary, which takes all of the other documents and puts them together in one. But if you really only care about U15, for instance, there are also level specific documents. So let's look at the U15 modification just as an example. These are the rule modifications from the rule book for U15 specifically. New stuff for 2024, there's literally two. It's goggles are mandatory, and we're using a 15-meter semicircle now. Otherwise, there's a clarification, but that's it. So same game that you played with last year. We go back to the website, we can look at the rule modification summary. And this is going to help tonight, I think, really define, let's get into this, the differences between U13, U15, U19, Jewel, if you're interested, and then what the rule book actually says. So this is the document I put together to try and define those things a little bit better. So we will come back to this a little bit, I think. But those are the rule modification documents. This is how you access them. The other thing that's available on our website is an OWFL common questions from coaches document. So all of the things that I get asked as an official at all levels of play, tried to consolidate and put together. How does a coach request a timeout? How do you request a stick check against an opponent? What are the lines called on the field? If I have a question or a concern about officials, or want to make a constructive comment about officiating, how do I do that? All of that is answered in this document. And just to show you where it is this one right here. So common questions from coaches. So coaches on the call tonight, please feel free to check that out. Hopefully that provides you with some important context to how you coach this summer, but that's there for you as well. Getting into the game, we're going to look at the types of turnovers and then the types of fouls. So there are changes of possession and turnovers, like a boundary ball. It's just a change of possession. No one's being penalized because it happened. And then we have 4 categories of fouls in women's lacrosse. There are offsides, restraining line violations. There are goal circle violations. So there are specific rules about what attack and defense can do around the goal circle. There are also minor fouls, which are kind of like tick-tacky rules about fairness. And then there are major fouls. And major fouls are important to our game because they are safety concerns for our game. And some of them are funny because you might not think that cradling within your headspace is a safety violation, but it is for the person that's doing it, because the other person is holding a stick up and wants to stick check this person. So it's not always about, am I smacking somebody with my stick? Sometimes it's about, what are my actions doing that can actually endanger me, never mind the people around me. And this is where this the history of our game kind of comes from. So in terms of the, like, British prim and proper, they were real like, well, look at ways that we can do these things to ourselves. And at this point, our game has evolved so much that it's just kind of really exciting to see how elevated the play has become, despite some of those things that have kind of like maybe been a little confusing for people as they got involved in the sport. With exceptions, fouls are served by moving 4 meters behind or to the side of the person you fouled. So if I foul Susie, I'm going 4 meters behind Susie or 4 meters to the side of Susie. And that's how we restart play. Yeah. Change of possession instances. So there's more in U9 and U11 that are specific to that game, like the 5-second rule and the passing rule. But we're playing real lacrosse now. So at these age divisions, U13 and up, there is no minimum passing requirement. You can just play lacrosse. There are going to be turnovers if the ball were to go out of bounds on a sideline or on an end line and it's not a shot. It's a simple change of possession. The closest opponent is going to get the ball 2 meters in bounds, and then they can just go. However, if there's a shot, so if I shoot and it goes out a side boundary or an end line, the closest player to the ball, where and when it crosses the line, is going to be awarded with that ball. So it's not the closest person to the line, period. It's the closest person to the ball, where and when it crossed the line. And that's why you're going to see athletes in our game chase after those balls, because they want to work hard to get that ball back. If an attack player shoots and misses, that's a 50-50 ball. So coaches are going to encourage their attackers, encourage their defenders, encourage their goalies to chase after those loose balls, because hopefully that's a turnover. When there is a change of direction, as I mentioned, no one goes behind or to the side because there is no foul. But otherwise, we're going to have fouls and we're going to move people. I don't really want to get into restraining line stuff too much tonight. I think this is all fairly straightforward, but this is a typical setup for women's field lacrosse that is onside, offside. So we've got our 3 players in yellow behind the line. They're the attacking team. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them playing beneath the restraining line in their attacking end of the field. The teal team is 3 above the restraining line, and they are 7 inside. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 is the goalkeeper, 5, 6, 7. They tend to play defense goal side. So it's going to be the attack is on the outside. The defender is between the attacker and the goal they are defending, goal side, usually with their back or with their butt to their own goalkeeper. And it's kind of circular. Things in lacrosse tend to be circular. We're going to cycle the ball. We're going to motion offense and move the ball. It's very similar in basketball, passing inside and outside the marking area. But this is our onside. So we've got our 3 across the top. We've got our 6v7 defenders inside. That's us being onside. It's worth flagging at this level that goalkeepers, they can go past center now because there is no line at the center of the field. Goalkeepers are not allowed to cross the far restraining line. So this teal goalie could go with the ball up the field, up the field, up the field. They can pass their close restraining line all the way up to the opposite restraining line. If they step on or over the opposite restraining line, if our officials know their rules, it should be an immediate whistle. We had a goalie score a goal last year, and that should not have happened. And that was a large discussion amongst our officiating cohorts after the game. That should not have happened. Goalkeepers are not only not allowed to score, but they are not allowed to cross the attacking line. It is not something that happens very often. I will say that much. Most goalies do not want to run that far. I didn't want to run that far, but I would run that far. So it's just something to bear in mind, is that goalie can go to the far restraining line. Defenders want to ensure that they get their feet in this marking area all the way off the line. There's been some confusion in past years, and World Lacrosse was finally clarified. On the line is in. So this defender is not inside the marking area. They're in a good defensive positioning. These defensive players kind of straddling this line, they want to work just a couple inches further out, and then they're not going to be in 3 seconds, which again, we will come back to later. But on the line is in. Just be aware of that. So that's a little bit better. That's these players coming. And then here we can see offside. This player was probably defending this person and they came in. Whistle's going to go. We're going to penalize the offside. On the line, again, on the restraining line is offside. So this yellow player is currently offside because they are standing on the line. Goal circle. So this one's, I look like an Oompa Loompa with these pink slides. I'm starting to regret this. They're just color coded because everything I do is color coded. Goal circle. So defense at all levels of play, U9 and up, are allowed to move through the goal circle. So don't worry about little Susie stepping on the goal circle line if she's on defense. She is allowed to step on the line. She's allowed to move through the goal circle, but you cannot remain inside the goal circle. So I cannot just post up inside that space, defending shots, kind of marking up. I need to make sure I'm moving through. Officials, if they see somebody who's really posted up in that space, will probably say, 17, get out of the goal circle. 17, get out. 17, get out. 17, mark up. We don't want to call that because it's kind of a foul that slows everything down. It's a tic-tac foul. We're trying to avoid those. But it is a foul, so it could get called. They can move through, but they cannot post up and remain in the goal circle. In OWFL specifically, the goalie needs to be the one to clear the ball from the goal circle. So this is the clarification that's in the U13, U15, and U19 rule modification documents, is that because you don't have to have a goalie on the field at this level, there is an instance where a defender could pick up a ball from the goal circle and run it out. But generally speaking, what was unfortunately happening before is that goalies were just giving the ball to a teammate, like pancake passing it into their stick, and then those players were running the field. And goalies were not learning how to throw, pass, catch, use their sticks. We wanted to avoid that. So this modification is for goalkeeper development, but goalies have to be the one to clear the ball from the goal circle. It doesn't have to be an overhand pass. They could roll it, they could bounce it, they could, they can do a lot of things, but they have to be the ones to clear the ball from the goal circle. Once a goalkeeper has possession, which means the ball is in their stick or smothered under their stick inside the goal circle, they have 5 seconds in which to clear the ball from the goal circle. That can mean that they pick it up and step outside the goal circle, or they pass it outside the goal circle. Those are both options to clear the ball. Goalies can only cover or smother the ball when it is inside the goal circle. And a goalie is considered in when at least 1 foot is on the line. Now, to be very clear, if the ball is outside and the goalkeeper is inside, they may not smother that ball. They can only smother the ball when the ball is inside the goal circle. Otherwise, it's called covering, and we'll go over covering. Once the goalie leaves the goal circle with the ball, they have to be played before they can return with the ball. So if I make a save and then I step out because I hear the official counting to 5 for the 5 seconds and I pass to a teammate, if they pass back to me, I can then roll the ball into the goal circle and follow it in. It has been played. Further, if I make another save and then I step out and I get stick checked, as a goalie, I can get stick checked at these levels. I can then but it stays in my stick because I've got that big, beautiful butterfly net of a stick. I can then roll it back into my goal circle and I get a new 5 seconds. Because we're playing with 5 seconds possession, it's really not that valuable to keep rolling it back in and following it in. It's something that teams used to take advantage of more when there were 10 seconds of possession, but now we only play with 5. We want the goalies to be clearing the balls up the field. But that is how they can do that legally. They have to be played, which means they are checked stick to stick, not defense stick to body, but checked stick to stick. Or if they pass the ball to a teammate and get it back. So that is being played. And then the goalie leaving the goal circle. Goalies in real lacrosse can leave the goal circle at any time. That is a decision that they make, that they have to own, that their defense has to live with. It can be great. It can be a really powerful way to play the game. It also has consequences, like having an empty net. And again, if no goalkeeper's on the field, a defensive player may be the one to clear the ball from the goal circle. That is the exception to our OWFL modification. If the goalkeeper gains possession of the ball outside the goal circle, they must roll it or toss it into the back of the net before following it in. They cannot walk over the goal circle line with the ball. Attack in the goal circle. This one's really exciting. This is a rule modification that came in last year, or not a modification. This is a new rule that came in last year from World Lacrosse for us that I don't think teams necessarily took advantage of last season, But I think as they start to realize that this is a thing, we're going to see them using more and more. We're going to see attack players waving around the goal circle to see what happens a little bit more and more. So attack players are now allowed to play a ball that is within the goal circle, either on the ground, lying on the goal circle, inside the goal circle, or on the line, or in the air, so long as they do not step on or over the goal circle line to play that ball or to take a shot. They can reach in. So that reach in is totally legal. If your toes touch the line, it's a goal circle violation. But so long as you remain off the line, your stick can reach in and play a loose ball in the air or on the ground. So that's really exciting. The second point is about shots specifically. So the goalkeeper must not step on, the attack player must not step on or in the goal circle until the whole ball passes completely over the goal line after shooting. So if I'm a shooter and I take a shot and I'm kind of falling into the goal circle, so long as the ball crosses into the goal and it's a good goal, I can then follow through with my feet into the goal circle. It's only a goal circle violation if your feet are inside or on the line of the goal circle before the goal is scored. So that is more similar to other sectors of play. The attacker cannot initiate contact. You cannot stick check the goalkeeper. You cannot initiate contact. If you shoot and it hits the goalkeeper's stick, like the goalkeeper's trying to make a save, that's fine. That is totally legal, but I cannot follow through under the goalkeeper's body, hit them with my stick, hit them with my body. Those are all going to be fouls and no goals. I cannot cause a defender to make contact with the goalkeeper, so I can't push a defender into the goalkeeper. And I cannot interfere with the goalkeeper or their cross in any way. So just as an example on that, this did come up a little bit last year. Goalkeeper makes a save. They only have 5 seconds to get that ball out of the goal circle. I, as an attacker, if I'm mirroring their stick, I'm trying to get in the way, I cannot make contact with the goalkeeper at all during that clear. So long as they are inside the goal circle, they need to be given entire space to play. Otherwise, they're considered interfering. If the goalie steps out, then you can play defense on them just as if they were a regular person. Sorry, I don't mean it that way. If they're a regular player, you lose your goalkeeping privileges when you step out of the goal circle. So attack can play defense right away on that goalkeeper as soon as they step fully out of the goal circle, or if they are clearing while they are outside of the goal circle. But inside, you cannot interfere. Minor fouls. I do recognize it's 8 o'clock. I apologize. I should have said up front, these take longer than 60 minutes. I'm sorry. If you do have to run, thank you for your time. But otherwise, this will be posted on YouTube and you can watch the rest on your own time. But let's get into minor fouls. So these are the ones where people that violate the rules are going to go 4 meters to the side of the person that they fouled. A lot of ones are illegal procedure, illegal equipment. So no jewelry is permitted, and no taping of jewelry. So doesn't matter if Susie just got her ears pierced, she can't wear earrings. Religious jewelry is fine. It just needs to be taped. So what we ask is that players approach the officials or coaches can approach the officials and say, hey, my number 17 is wearing a religious bracelet. That's why she's wearing tape. Great, not a problem. Please just let the officials know, because we do not want to be calling players out if there's a legal reason why they're wearing jewelry. But generally speaking, your earrings are probably less religious than you'd like them to be. Illegal draw, not drawing legally. That's going to be an illegal procedure call. And a minor foul. If players substitute illegally, so coming onto the field too soon, illegal substitution. We cannot also throw our sticks, and we cannot exchange sticks. So there's this real big tendency at the highest levels of the game, and a lot of OWFL players kind of like idolize and watch NCAA athletes. It's one of the highest elite forms of our game that you can see. And draw takers in the NCAA now will use one stick to draw, and then they will exchange a stick on the field with one of their teammates so they have a better shooting stick. That is technically not legal in our game, in the version of the game that we are playing. So you have to use the same stick on the field, and we cannot swap sticks on the field. If we want to swap sticks, or if I want to use another one of my own sticks, I have to go off the field. I have to go to where my extra sticks are being kept. I have to pick that stick up, and then I can use it. So I can't exchange sticks with a teammate on the field. And then the other one that's going to be new for U13 athletes and that U15 and U19 athletes will get used to is early entry. So at the draw, teammates in the midfield may not enter the center circle before the whistle. So those are the two teammates from either team around the center circle. They can't step into the center circle before the whistle to gain an advantage. And the players that are below the restraining line, so on either side, the defensive ends of both restraining line, they cannot enter the midfield prior to possession. Now, same thing as that restraining line while it's in play. If your feet are on the line, you're offside or you're early entering. But if your feet are off the line, you can reach in. So what I would coach my players to do is keep your feet maybe a foot back so you have space to inch as you're competing for a ball without going offside or without drawing an early entry foul. We see it a lot, particularly as athletes are getting used to possession. You cannot enter the midfield prior to the official saying possession with a big arm signal, just like in men's field and in sixes. If a ball comes over the restraining line and they say free ball, that is the equivalent. So once possession or free ball is called, anyone can go anywhere on the field so long as they remain on side. Before that, you have to hold the restraining lines. The restraining lines are locked. Other minor fouls, pretty common to our game, include body ball. So you're not allowed to kick the ball in World Lacrosse rules. Covering is a really misunderstood one. People get it, but I don't think people understand the context that's important to how this rule should be officiated. So people in women's field lacrosse cannot cover a ground ball with their stick or any part of their body, and I quote, when it prevents an opponent from making a legal play on the ball. So let's say the ball is, I miss a pass and it goes over my head and I'm running towards the sidelines to try and stop it from going out of bounds. And no one chases after me. I am all alone. I can cover the ball and pick it up or rig it into my stick so long as nobody else is going for that ball. So if nobody is making an attempt to play the same ball that I am, then I'm allowed to cover the ball in women's field lacrosse. People often see that happen and go, that's a cover. Sir, I would call it if I thought it was a cover, but nobody's going for it. So we want to make sure that we understand that context and covering. That'll go a long way. Goalkeeper goal. This is the dumb one. If I can change anything in our game, it would be this because I just think it's so dumb. Not only can a goalie not score, it's a foul. It's a foul. It's an injustice is what it is. So goalies are not allowed to score. Handball. Only goalies can use their hand, can pick up or touch the ball with their hand inside the goal circle. Like I said, once a goalkeeper completely leaves the goal circle, their feet are off the line and out, they lose all goalkeeping privileges. So they're still wearing the big helmet, they still have the big stick and the gloves, but technically they are a player at that point. So all the same rules will apply. Empty stick check. So when a player's stick is in contact with the ball, an opponent is allowed to check their stick. If the ball is not in contact with the stick, that's an empty. So I don't actually have to have possession of the ball in my stick to be stick checked. If the ball was touching, so if I was going for a ground ball and pushing a ball on the ground, I can legally be checked. An important distinction that, again, kind of tough to know. And then a held stick check. Stick checks have to come down and up or down and through. They cannot be held. So if you hold a stick check against an opponent, that's going to be a foul. So some of these you might have seen in U9, U11, U13 last season, in U15 and U19, but hopefully the covering and the empty stick check in particular, those definitions help us define that rule a little bit better going into this season. Major fouls. These are the ones we're really going to focus on. This is where if someone commits a major foul, they're going to go 4 meters behind the person that they fouled, unless there is a card. We'll talk about cards at the very end. These are more egregious fouls. These are safety concern fouls, either for the player's own safety or for the safety of those around them. And there's 2 broad subcategories in real lacrosse around what types of major fouls exist. Generally, they fall into these 2 categories. So there are displacement fouls, and there are fouls oriented around unsafe checking practices or like illegal actions with your stick. So for the displacement ones, the OWFL modification is this one. you're not allowed to play with a horizontal stick in these three divisions. In U13 and my apologies. In U13 and U15, you are not allowed to play with a horizontal stick. So this is one of those development things. We're trying to train players to play good defense, which means sticks are up. They are not horizontal, they are up. The intent is to eliminate the middle shaft of the defender's stick from contacting the ball carrier's arm once or multiple times in a row. Those are, in these levels, fouls, immediate. We work with our officials really like very heavily on this being automatic. If I see a horizontal stick, tweet, major foul. Just go 4 meters behind right away. We're not trying to make a big deal out of this. We just want to make sure people understand that you need to get your stick up to play defense at these levels. The defender stick head should technically not be below 30 degrees, but I'll show you what we're really looking for. And this is the foul signal from one of our officials. So what does 30 degrees look like? Well, technically this is 30 degrees, but what we really want is for sticks to be at 45 degrees. So 30, 35 degrees, those are kind of like hard to define. I'm not good at math. I don't really know what 35 degrees looks like, but I know what 45 degrees looks like. And so that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that perfect cut of a 90-degree angle, 45 or higher. These are all going to be really good examples of non-horizontal defense, of legal defense. If you are under that, or if your stick is totally flat, this is a horizontal stick foul. This one and this one, you're going to start to hear the officials say, number 17, stick up, stick up. That's what we're working with our officials on, trying to get your players to think about getting their stick a little bit higher. But that's our horizontal stick rule. The horizontal sticks are real, and cross-checking. Cross-checking is not defined as a foul in our game, but it's something that we just have to live with now because it is becoming more and more common. Lacrosse in the US is it is literally the Wild West sometimes. And this is this is the in vogue rule. There have been some very serious injuries in the NCAA over the last couple of seasons. And so that's why one of the reasons that we adopted this rule, so that we're training our athletes to not play defense in a way that's dangerous for their opponents. And probably the most yellow cards that we see are for elevated cross checks, ones that are really dangerous, done with a lot of force, done dangerously on the body. So that's the thing to be aware of with this modification for U13 and U15. Now, it is still, if you cross-check somebody in U19, it is a foul. You cannot start with your stick off somebody's body, end it forcefully on somebody's body, and think you're not going to be carded for that. You should be. However, it is not illegal to play defense horizontally. And horizontal defense in U19 and Jewel is legal. It is only that when it's displacing somebody that it's going to be a foul. Whereas at U13 and U15, it's illegal if you displace, and it's illegal if you don't displace. We want to get your sticks up and higher. Hopefully that's more clear. And here's just some examples. So we have a really good, this is our 30-degree angle, which is technically legal, but we want it higher. This is a good 45-degree angle on the defense, making contact. This looks real 50-50. There's no displacement happening here. This one is where we're going to say to the player in white, who I think is wearing number 24, 24, get your stick up, stick higher, stick up. And then this one, this Virginia player is using their stick at less than 180 degrees, so a super flat, even lowered angle. This is automatically a whistle in U13 and U15. You need to get your stick up. At U19 and Jewel, this is perfectly legal, so long as this player, this Virginia player, does not extend their arms and move number 44 for Syracuse out of the way. She doesn't displace her opponent. And just to define that displacement, 50-50 contact is a common part of our game. The other rule that's been lost transitioning from U11 to U13 is that you're now allowed to make all three of these players stick to body contact anywhere on the field. It's not limited to the advantage flag area anymore. So this is perfectly legal, but as soon as this defender extended their arms out, extended their arms and displaced the player in blue, 50-50 is good, 60-40 is not good, 70-30 is for sure a foul, 100-0 is a card. So that's the difference there, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking at, is the defender moving their body to displace the attacker? And on the other hand, is the attacker moving their body to displace the defender. Charging is a common foul for attackers in our game, particularly as at U13, you might have really tall players and really short players playing against each other. There's often some like body growth stuff we're going through at that age. So both attack and defense can commit displacement fouls. And the other category is unsafe checking fouls. So rough or dangerous checks, checking somebody across the body, a dangerous follow through. So after I shoot, I make contact with the defender in front of me with my stick, and a swipe, which is a reckless or an uncontrolled stick check. I know that a lot of people actually probably want to hear about these in detail, but what I've been working on is a series of videos that go through each one of these rules with foul videos, like examples of these fouls being committed or examples of legal stick checking. So those are going to be posted to our YouTube page this week. I'm literally just waiting on World Lacrosse to approve them. So I'm going to send them to everybody on this mailing list. So if you're curious about, what does an illegal contact foul or a push or a cross check foul look like, there's video. If you want to know what a dangerous follow through looks like, I've got a lot of videos of people getting hit with sticks. So stay tuned for that this week, and all of those will be available. And then if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. There are 2 more fouls we're going to go through, and then 2 more small concepts, and we are done. So please bear with me. Shooting space is 100% something we want to address tonight, though. Shooting space is the most women's field lacrosse rule that we have. It is the one that draws the most ire from people that do not understand our game. And I actually think that if we take some time to go through it, you'll start to notice it. You'll start to see it yourself in game. So shooting space is a major foul. It is one of those safety of others considerations. And it's actually like a safety of, it's not one of those safety of others, it's a safety for myself foul. So a player puts themselves in shooting space and it's their own foul, which feels kind of weird sometimes. Shooting space is in effect when the attacking team has possession of the ball within the MA. So as soon as the attacking ball carrier steps on the marking area line or inside that line, shooting space is possible. A defender is not allowed to block or guard the goal for the purpose of obstructing the lane between the shooter and the edges of the crease. So I'm going to visualize this, like I'll show you a picture of what this looks like. And shooting space is a foul because it denies the attacking team the opportunity to shoot safely. So we want the attack, because none of our players are wearing equipment, to shoot in a way that does not endanger the people around them. A defender, on the other hand, is not going to be in shooting space if they are legally marking within a stick length one of their opponents or standing below the goal line extended. So this is our diagram of shooting space from the rulebook. If this is where the ball is, technically shooting space is eligible, but only above the goal line extended. So this defender could never be called in shooting space. And as you can see, if this is the ball, it's defined from the ball to the edges of the goal circle. If this is the ball just inside the center hash, it's defined from the ball to the edges of the goal circle. And here's what this looks like in practice. So this is Team USA playing Team Canada at the last World Championships. This player has the ball. This player wants to shoot the ball. And this player is very clearly outside of a stick length. They cannot touch either of the open opponents with their stick. That's how we judge a stick length. And they are obstructing, they are blocking the space between the shooter and the edges of the goal circle. They are doing a very poor job of playing goalie in this instance, and this is illegal for this shooter's safety. It is illegal. So this is what shooting space looks like in practice. Another example, again, same game, Team Canada playing Team USA. This shooter, I think that's Ali Jermerson. Ali has stepped on the marking area line. A foot is on the line, so it is eligible to be called. And they have their stick up. They have the opportunity, and they are looking to shoot. You have to have the opportunity to shoot. If there were 4 white players within a stick length here, this player would not be able to shoot safely. But this player has a very clear path to goal. And this white defender is blocking or obstructing that shooting lane. This is shooting space. So this is what, as officials, we are looking for when we're looking for shooting space. If this red player was standing right here, there is no foul occurring. But because this defender is alone within this space, this is shooting space. There is a shooting space exception that is also new as of last season. So this might have caused some confusion with some clubs. Definitely something we're still working on clarifying. But because shooting space is an immediate whistle, we have this exception to kind of save instances where an official's concern for someone's safety kills a goal. We do not want to kill the play. We do not want to kill goals, but we have to call this immediately for safety reasons. So if the whistle is blown specifically for a shooting space violation between the moment a shot has been released and a goal is scored, so shot is released, whistle for shooting space, ball enters the net, the goal will count. That is the new shooting space exception. If the whistle goes and then the shooter shoots and then the ball enters the goal, that is no goal. That is shooting space. And it's not going to count as a goal. The shooter's going to get the ball back and get a shooting space penalty, like administration. On the other hand, this means that a save also counts. If a goal counts, so does a save. So if the whistle is blown for shooting space between the moment the shot has been released and the goalkeeper saves the ball, so shot happens, whistle for shooting space, goalie makes the save, tweet, once the goalie has the ball, we're going to stop the play. We're going to signal in the shooting space, but we're going to restart play with the goalie because the goalie made the save. In all other scenarios, so usually that means if the shooter shot and missed, the shooter's going to get a free position unless the attack fouls. So the thing to consider here, and what you will probably see this summer, is that the attack that's shooting must decide whether they're going to shoot safely or not. And if an attack decides to shoot when somebody is in their lane, we can consider that a dangerous propel. So if we go back to this example, if 24 absolutely just bombs this shot, and yes, this player is fouling, this player is in shooting space, but if the ball rockets past their head, I'm also going to penalize 24. We're going to penalize both of those players. So that's a dangerous propel. And I have videos with lots of people almost getting hit with balls if you'd like to watch those videos as well. They will be organized for you this week. So that's the shooting space exception. Important to note for coaches, all levels, you need to train your goalies to play to the ball, not the whistle. If there was a different type of foul, like if 3 seconds is what kills the play, the goal won't count. But we want your goalie to make the save or, have the best opportunity to make the save. So if the whistle goes on a shot, we don't want the goalies to stop playing. We don't want the players to stop playing. You actually have to play to the save or play to the ball, not the whistle in this example. And then related to shooting space is 3 seconds. We talked about this a little bit tonight. With our larger marking area, this is going to be a big point of emphasis for us this season. 3 seconds takes effect when the attacking team crosses the ball over the restraining line into the attacking end of the field. A defender must not remain in the marking area for more than 3 seconds unless they are marking an opponent within a stick length. Again, this is why it's related to the shooting space foul. If we look back at this example, if Ali was not looking to shoot, but was looking to pass to a teammate, this person is not in a shooting space. They're not looking to shoot, but they're probably in 3 seconds because how long have they been in the space if they're that far away from the 2 closest people that they could potentially be defending? And a defender who is marking an unmarked opponent standing directly behind the goal, they're allowed to be inside. They're exempt from 3 seconds, but they are not exempt from shooting space. So if this player passes to this player who runs the ball behind, this player can actively mark that girl behind, no problem. But if the ball gets passed back and this situation happens, then that's going to be shooting space. So that's how those 2 rules are related. Advantage. I did have some questions about trying to go over advantage. So by the time you get to U13, U15, and definitely U19, you are going to have more experienced officials on your game. So in these instances, you're going to see officials start to take a bigger interest in the flow of the game versus just safety. So we do want to see how the play plays out. We're not always going to blow our whistles right away. By rule, we are allowed to hold our whistles and delay blowing them until an attack plays through an advantage. So if we see a defensive foul on the field, I can hold my whistle until the attack plays through their advantage. This can happen anywhere on the field. In the advantage flag area on a scoring drive, if I see a major foul, I can flag it, which is what you see here. So this game's for 2016. I don't remember what the foul was, but obviously I saw a foul. Maybe it was 3 seconds because there's 3 Oshawa players hanging out in here. Or 2 Oshawa players. Maybe this one was in 3 seconds. Who knows? But we can flag scoring drives. If I say advantage and put my arm out, or if I say flag and put my flag in the air, those are both examples of me recognizing the foul as an official, but not wanting to kill the play. So that is what's going on there. Oh my God, I've been missing. I realized that I missed a chat. Amanda, if you want to unmute yourself and just kind of ask your question, please feel free to interrupt me as we go here. I'm not sure when you sent me that message. But in terms of advantage, if an arm goes out and you hear us say advantage, or if an arm goes up and you hear us say flag and we pull our yellow flag, that means we've seen the foul. We just want to see how the play progresses before we penalize, because we don't want to blow our whistles more. We want to blow our whistles less. Last thing we wanted to go over tonight is cards. There are 2 cards used in women's field lacrosse. We have a yellow card, which is a 2-minute foul when it's your first card of the game. We have a yellow-red card. So if it's your second foul of the game, that's cardable. We're going to show a yellow and a red together. That player is going to be on for 5 minutes instead of 2 minutes. And anytime we show a red card, that player is then expelled. So that player cannot re-enter the game. This is the case from U9 all the way to Jewel. If a red card is shown, it's a 10-minute foul. So a straight red card. That's a 10-minute violation. It's pretty reprehensible play. And it can be someone's first or second card of the game. It doesn't matter, but that player is immediately going to be expelled. Teams must play down for the entire duration of the card. They are non-releasable. So it's not like in hockey where if we got scored against them and my player had a card, they could re-enter the field. We always have to play out the duration of the card. So you can score multiple goals while your team is up a player. And there are mandatory cards and there are non-mandatory cards. So the 4 mandatory cards, if we see these, we are supposed to automatically card them or flag them and then card them after a goal or after a scoring drive. A check to the head, a swipe, which is the reckless or an uncontrolled stick check or attempted stick check, dangerous follow through, following through onto the body unsafely of an opponent with your stick, and a dangerous propel. That's the shooting space one. That's one where I propel the ball into a person, around a person. It doesn't have to make contact to be a foul. Discretionary cards. Any major foul can be upgraded to a major foul. So what we see a lot is that big cross check that I'm going to upgrade, and that's going to be a card. It's an illegal contact card. If you repeatedly do the same thing over and over and over and over again, usually it's 3 and then the 4th can be a card. And then misconduct, derogatory language, things that are inappropriate for the play, bullying, those types of things on the field from coaches or from players, those are cardable offenses. I lied. There was one other thing. Self-start. This is actually the last thing. This is the thing that we're talking about when we say players can just go. So they get fouled, the whistle goes, they pick up the ball and they go. We're talking about self-start. So when a player is fouled anywhere outside of the advantage flag area, in the midfield, in the attacking and defending ends of the corners, anywhere that's not the advantage flag area, a player may self-start, which means they can restart the play of their own volition without a subsequent whistle. There are 4 instances where a person cannot self-start. One is if the clock is stopped. So for us, that's like the last 30 seconds of the quarters, or the last 2 minutes of the 4th quarter. If there's an illegal draw, or if there's, sorry, on the first one, if there's a timeout, you cannot self-start after a timeout. The clock has to restart first. So that's why we need the clock to start, and the clock starts and stops on whistles. If there's an illegal draw, usually that one you can't self-start because we have to go get the ball, bring it back to center, and then we restart with a whistle. If there's an offside, the reason you can't self-start is because we have to correct the offside. So we can't just let players go. We need to make sure that the teams, once we blow our whistle, are onside. And then all other fouls occurring in the advantage flag area. So because we can't allow players to start within 15 meters, if someone gets fouled a step outside the marking area, they're allowed to self-start. Just because they're close doesn't mean they have to wait for a whistle. But as soon as the foul occurred on the line or inside the marking area, then they have to wait for a whistle before they can restart. But those 4 instances are where players have to wait for a whistle to restart. Learning outcomes. I'm so sorry we took so much longer tonight than I had planned to. My goal had been to provide a brief overview, I'm not sure how effective I was, of the game of women's field lacrosse and our history, provide a brief overview of the OWFL and our programs. I wanted to introduce real lacrosse, that is U13, U15, and U19, including the modifications to these levels of play. Again, I would highly recommend that you guys, as a follow-up to tonight, go to the OWFL website, and if you're a U13, click on those modifications, give them a quick read through. It's just a half a page. And you'll notice that if we go from U13 to U15, so U15, U13, they're basically the same document. The only difference is the length of quarters. It's the only difference between those 2 levels. And then the U19 one has even less because we don't have a horizontal stick rule at that level. But I wanted to try and introduce those modifications. I really want to build avenues for spectators and coaches to better inform themselves and contribute to positive environments, not just for our officials, but very much so for our players, who I think take on quite a lot of that spectator stress and yelling and screaming sometimes. Like, we want this to be a positive environment for everybody. And I really want to foster an appreciation for this phenomenal game. So to those of you who stuck with me tonight, thank you. My request to you is that we did not cover every foul, we did not cover every game concept, and we did not cover every exception. And if you've learned anything about women's lacrosse tonight, know that there are exceptions to lots of things that I said tonight. So my rule for my officials is that if you're going to start a sentence with "Hannah said," please make sure that I said it. Please feel free to refer back to this, to refer back to the rule documentation that I've created. It is there for everyone in our game. No rule should be a secret. And know that I'm a student of the game as well. I have my hands in lots of different levels of this sport internationally. I'm the head of Lacrosse Canada officiating. I'm the director of OWFL officiating, but I make a lot of mistakes. So please bear with me as we try and grow this beautiful game. And hopefully everyone's feeling like you're real thrilled that this presentation is finally over, but also really excited to head into the summer field season. And hopefully your kids get to really enjoy playing this season. So I'm going to stay on the call. If anybody has any additional questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and we can chat. And then I'm also available via email. So I will send out this recording later this week, as well as this link to the slide deck. And just thank you so much for your time tonight. But otherwise, please feel free to log off and enjoy the rest of your evening. It's still, well, it's a little dark out now, but I'm sure it's still lovely. So please enjoy your night. Thank you so much. Amanda. Thank you. Please, Amanda, unmute yourself and go ahead. Hi, Amanda.
That's Bella.
Oh, hi, Bella.
So she's moving up to 13.
Amazing.
But she is not grasping what you said about there not being a mandatory pass between players.
Oh, okay. So Bella, you're making the big change. So in U11, how many passes did you have to make before your team could go and take a shot?
2.
2? No, girl.
One.
It started into one.
One. Yeah. So that's one of those rules that keeps changing, right? This year in U13, if you were to do the draw, so you're the draw taker and you get the ball off the draw and no one's in your way and you run down to the goal, do you have to pass to a teammate or can you shoot the ball right away? What do you want to do? Do you want to shoot or do you want to pass? You want to shoot. You want to shoot. Yeah, exactly. So you're allowed to. You don't have to pass that ball anymore. Now, does your coach want you to pass the ball sometimes? Yes. Like if somebody has a better chance to score, should you pass them the ball? Yeah. But if you have a really good chance to shoot you don't have to pass the ball anymore. So the officials are not going to put their hand in the air and tell you when you've made your pass. No one's going to yell at you that you're hot anymore, which is my least favorite thing in our game. So you can just go to goal and shoot anytime that it's safe for you to shoot, anytime that you feel like you can take a safe shot. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Awesome. Good luck this. Oh, I don't know why it's doing that. I don't like that at all. That needs to stop. Yeah, so that is no more passing rules. So you can pass, we want you to pass, but only when it makes sense now. So now that we're in U13 and you're very intelligent, you're going to make smart passes instead of having to make passes. Cool?
Mhm.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the question, Bella.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions? Any of our 3 other remaining?
Yeah,
Is
hi
that
Hannah, it's
Sam?
Sam. Yeah, it
Sam!
is.
I was so thrilled to see your name on this list.
I know I wanted to join so bad. I'm like, oh, I could probably use a refresher. Um,
You always
can I send these like this slide or whatever to my parents?
100%. I would be more, no rules of secret, Sam. You send them
Okay.
anything I create. Odds are I have at least one error in this document that I'll need to correct before I send it out. But yes, anything that I create, anything on our website, any of our YouTube videos, please share them.
Okay.
These YouTube videos, I'm really banking on these finally answering a lot of people's questions about our stupid rules. So
Okay.
hopefully those are helpful. And the videos have taken a long time to collect. So between tonight's presentation and the videos, please feel free to share any of it to anybody that's asking, with all of those considerations in mind, right? Like things change. This is specific to the OWFL, like that type of stuff.
Right. Yeah, I just have like a lot of new people too, and I just think that everyone could benefit just from a look over.
Why do you think I'm doing this? Yeah.
I know. I really. This was actually brilliant, so thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I mean, it's been a lot, and I was a little worried about this one, but this is the one we had most people register for. So thank you for asking the question, and yeah, not a problem at all.
Hey, thanks, Hannah. You're the best.
You too, Sam. Bye.
Bye.
And Jesse and Shannon, any questions for Amanda? Still any questions? Awesome. All good. Bella, are we good to go? We good to go have dinner? Okay. Thanks so much for your time tonight, you guys. Have a great evening.